All right, welcome to another podcast episode. This is the September energy update. If you are watching the video, you will see my Boston Terrier, LJ, deciding she is feeling rather needy and wants to sit on me while I'm trying to do this. So, uh, ex hopefully you won't hear her, but this is the energy update for September. I know now it is September 4th. It's been interesting because I feel as though September there was all this like unsureness, and like that's probably the only way I can really describe it is this unsureness of what's to come, what's really happening. It feels like I feel like so many people may be at this point where you're feeling like you've done so much work or you've put in so much effort, and it's almost like, when does it rebound? When does it come full circle? And that could be for a lot of different things. It could be things in life, it could be relationships, it could just be challenging times in general. Just a lot, of different things happening, just depending on where you're at in your journey, which is totally fine. We're all in different places, all striving for different things, and that's what life here is meant to be. But it's this place where it does seem to have a bit of a commonality between where everybody's kind of at. So it's almost like I've put in all this effort. I haven't seemed to seen, and I mean, again, manage your expectations because that definitely could be a part of it as well, right? All of our expectations don't always get met in the way we think they should, and that can cause disappointment or unsureness. But this is a deeper unsureness. This is like at a level of vibrational frequency of change. And the reason why I say that is because change always feels unknown and unsure. But in this way it's more aligned with mm, bringing in, I guess, what you maybe have been working on and seeing that full circle start to come around. So it might not be 100% this month where you start to really see it happening, but I know the year of 2026 is a big year for that. I'm not saying you have to wait an entire year or anything like that because everything can change in a blink of an eye, literally. But it's one of those places where if you're feeling that, I would suggest that you feel into it more and ask yourself, like, do you feel unsure because you just don't really know what's coming? Or are you feeling unsure because your expectations aren't being met? Really get real and honest with yourself, because that will actually allow you to understand if that unsureness is just more or less like, I can feel it coming and I just don't know how to describe what or how, or when it's going to show up more like. And again, if like I just heard them say, take away the time though, because if we took away time, it wouldn't matter, and this urgency wouldn't matter, and the progress of just doing these things and taking the action wouldn't matter as much to the brain because it's not linear, like in a linear fashion trying to make sense of all of it. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed because, like, well, when does it all come around? When is my time, when does all my efforts and all these things come and be completed in this way? And not completed, but you know what I'm saying. The more or less of the full circle and the rewards and the abundance coming your way. So my dog likes to catch flies. Um, so yes, if you're in that space where you're like, I'm really not too sure what I'm feeling, it's not, again, it's probably not just you. I know there's a lot of people, I know personally there's a lot of people going through a lot of different things and working on a lot of different stuff in their life, and that's fine and that's great. But I do feel as though, some people are kind of hitting this point where it's like, how much more effort do I continue to put in? It's almost like you're at almost that last step, but you don't realize it, right? Before the full circle comes back around. And so many people are kind of either pausing or they're hesitating. I wouldn't say I would feel like a lot of people are wanting to just full on give up, but maybe in certain aspects for sure. Like, so if you're feeling some of that, I want you to remember to get out of being human for a minute, because it will help you to remember you're an energetic being, and what you're feeling is this momentum of energy starting to really come into play now in the physical sense of things. So like a lot of that physical progress starting to really show up in our materialistic world. So it's It's a hard thing to describe because it is kind of a really different place than I would say we've really felt this kind of energy before. And that's probably why it might feel agitated sometimes, or like your brain really can't seem to make sense of it. And so it seems to be like having a bit of a hard time, allowing you to feel excited by it and to acknowledge that, yes, it is coming. So September is kind of a bit of a strange month in the aspect of that energy, but also time. They keep bringing up the remembrance of time, and time is going to feel really strange this month in certain ways. So I don't even I'm not even sure of the words to use here because it's not necessarily where I feel like it's speeding up or slowing down. Maybe a little bit of that, but it's this, I want to say, sticky feeling between vibrations. And so this makes so much sense to me, like at a feeling or like level. I get it, but I don't know how I'm fully going to put this into words. So I'm going to try really hard to explain this in a way that hopefully will make sense, because I think this is also a part of why so many people are just like, I don't know what to think of this, because it's really hard to make sense of at a logical aspect of things. So for us being human, it's never going to make sense. I want you all to remember that, because humanness is meant to experience materialistic world and the physical. So when we do that, it's only for our conscious mind of human to experience what we're experiencing here at the physical level. So when we're trying to explain things at an energetic level, it can be hard because the logical mind wants to fully make sense of it before it seems like it could accept that. And that's really tough because it's very hard to put words into frequency sometimes, right? So here's the thing about it. It feels sticky time-wise. And what I kind of want to use as an analogy is like almost dreamlike to certain degrees, almost like if you took deja vu and turned it up like 10 notches. But it's not so much of like the familiar feeling. It's like the uh I know I've kind of been here before, but I don't see the whole picture, if that makes sense. That's probably the easiest way I can put it. And it can cause a little bit of, hmm, like, it can cause some fear. I will be dead honest. It can cause some fear because what happens if we don't understand something, we naturally become a little bit unsure, which unsureness in a lot of us causes fear to slightly come up because our bodies and our brains now are trying to figure out if we're actually in danger or not, right? So even though it's just a feeling and it's an experience, the body doesn't know the difference between it just being an experience or something actually happening in the physical reality of things. So remember that and have a little bit of grace with yourself, because if you do feel like you're a little freaked out by something or you're a little unsure of something and you're like, oh, I know better, I don't want you to be saying that to yourself this month or really at all, because that's your ego trying to say, you know better, you can do better, all these things. And that's not helpful. So this is a month it is a strange month for time. And I say that because what's interesting to me when I look further, when I was kind of looking further into that kind of deal of stickiness, it's almost actually more of this way of being between timelines, or hmm when you are in a conscious thought. Okay, let me use this as an example. Maybe this will help explain it a little bit more. When you are like as a conscious thought thinking about, let's say, a goal or something you're working towards, right? And you're really excited by that, and it's like your brain then almost gets like these different notions or visions or ideas of how that could possibly look. So it's almost like you play out in your mind aspect of things different scenarios or different outcomes or different ways of doing something. It's almost like you're trying it on in different ways. Now, back, even beginning of this year, when you were doing that kind of stuff, it would have literally only kind of felt like a thought process, right? You're just kind of playing it out a little bit in the head, trying things on. It's like they just joked and said, yeah, you're just trying on a closet full of clothes and trying to figure out which one suits you the best in just in the mind's eye, right? But in this aspect, because our vibrations have changed so much now, we're starting to merge into a different timeline of literal physical reality that is a lot more tangible to understand when you truly accept it and you start to really understand how reality is created individually by all of us. And that's what and how we experience things, right? So it's this weird space where, like, instead of just trying it on in your mind's eye, it's almost like you're trying it on in more of a quantum realm aspect of things where it feels quite tangible, where almost this is why you might get a little freaked out sometimes is like, well, what version actually happened? Which one did I actually have happen in my reality, right? Even if you only had thought it through, because you might go to sleep and you might wake up the next day and you're a little bit confused because you don't remember exactly which timeline of reality seemed like it's the one that actually happened in your timeline. I do not want you to get freaked out by this, okay? We've been very much taught that our life here is very linear because of how dense a form we are in, which is the densest you can get, which is physical 3D. So it's we've kind of been told in a way, and it made sense to our brains, right? Because we're looking for an aspect of physical sense. So physical 3D makes us feel like we have linear time, and we just don't. That's actually not how any of it works. And it's actually really backwards in a sense to the way that frequency actually works. So that's why it can seem so confusing sometimes and so overwhelming and a little bit freaky because it is this sensation that nobody really told us is actually very normal for us to have an experience with. You know, people want to take, the animal kingdom or, more of the animalistic beings here, of course, our wild animals and stuff that are still living in a survival mode state of being. But the thing is like that's how we see them. Okay. They very well likely, for all we know, could be living in a very interesting experience that we have no bloody idea about, that they experience time and earth very differently, obviously, for obvious reason they do, but at the same point, at even a consciousness level, it's very different. So we can't just go comparing and saying, oh, well, those are just wild animals and they live in a physical 3D linear form. No, we're comparing that because that's what we've been somewhat known as our own experience. Okay. So this is like one of those things where you have to remember to start challenging yourself a little bit and being like, okay, I'm not crazy, because you're not crazy. I promise you're not crazy. It's this space where it is very natural for us to actually have these kinds of experiences because of who we actually are, which is we are not physical beings. We're having a physical experience as an energetic being. And so when you're just having these notions and these things happening, you're remembering parts of yourself at an energetic state. That's what it is. Okay. So it can actually be extremely helpful when you decide to lean into it more. I have found it's really kind of fun, especially if you do have ideas or if you're looking for clarity on questions, or maybe you're trying to, have a solution to something. And that could be as simply as a relationship, or maybe, you had a little bit of a spicy conversation with someone you love and you're like, I don't really know how to go about this. It can be as simple as those little things. And then right up to the larger things in life, the much more challenging pieces. I know there are some people going through some really challenging shit right now. And it just seems to be one thing after another. And it's not even always so much in our life, but maybe it's people around us or people we really love are going through a lot of things right now as well, right? And it seems like maybe you're the only support system, or you're really the only one they can talk to, and you feel really obligated now to be that person. Just remember too that like you're playing a role, yes, for them, but for yourself as well, to make sure you are still choosing you in some aspects and making sure you are taking care of yourself in the mental, especially the mental, and of course, then the best you can with the physical, with whatever might be going on. But it is so important for you to still have some kind of tools to be using in these times, because this can throw you into a pit of your own that because now you've gone into survival mode trying to take care of all these things or trying to take care of all these challenges. You're not here doing this life alone. I'm going to repeat that one more time because they're like, we want you to know you are not here doing this life alone. You never have been. That's an illusion. You might feel really alone at times. We've all been there because that's very naturally human experience to feel alone because of the illusion of disconnect we've been given as in our experience here, which is meant to be had for a reason, so that we can learn more and more about ourselves in a very different aspect than we ever could, never being in a physical form. So when you're feeling alone or feeling overwhelmed because it feels like all this stuff's been thrown on you or all these challenges are being presented, you take the moment, you breathe a little bit, and you remember you are not here doing this alone. We've all come in here with help on the other side. Every single person. You are not disconnected from them. That is a belief. So you need to make sure you remind yourself, I am not doing this alone, and ask for support when you need it, whether that is truly from other people in your life or from the other side. You can always ask for support from the other side quietly in your mind. You never have to say it out loud, which is the most beautiful thing sometimes, because sometimes we just don't want to talk about shit, and that's okay. But at the same point, you can then ask for help from the other side, but maybe they lead you to somebody that can be more of a support as well, that you might not even realize that you needed in the physical realm of things as well. So remember that you're never doing it alone and that you need to just breathe, and you really do need to take the time for yourself to make sure you're not rushing through things or constantly trying to figure out how to fix everything. That will literally eat you from the inside out, especially in today's world right now where we are. It will eat you alive. No joke. I wish I was, but I'm not even kidding. It will make you sick from the inside out so quick that you will blink and you'll be like, how the hell did I get here when I was feeling totally fine a month ago? So it's that point just to remember it's really important to make sure you're addressing yourself first and you're questioning yourself and you're using your awareness going forward. Because awareness, I've been prepping and telling people for the last 2.5 years now that awareness is super, super important as we move into these times, especially coming now into 26, 27 years. So, I mean, if you haven't really been practicing a lot of it, I would still suggest definitely doing it this month. Start today, start now. But this month particularly might actually kind of push you to have a little bit more self-awareness sometimes, even in the midst of, busyness or whatever might be going on in life, because of the factor that there's going to be some kind of strange feelings, some strange experiences. And I keep using the word strange because for me it's not strange, but for most people it probably will be strange because it might be very new for whatever you're experiencing. And I've used it to certain degrees, when I have different experiences or newer experiences or all sorts of things, right? And I've used that word strange because sometimes our physical human mind just doesn't have anything else to say other than that was strange. Right? So I want you to remember that, especially for this month, because time is weird and sticky. Those experiences with time are gonna be weird and sticky a little bit. And it might come and go. I mean, you might have some days that you're like, oh wow, this is like a great, flowing day. It just feels really in flow and feels really great and there's no stickiness today. And then you might wake up the next day and you're like, what the hell happened? So it's going to come day by day. So this is really just taking everything day by day, minute by minute, not getting too far ahead of yourself for anything, because it also brings you back to living in present moment. And it's always extremely helpful to be in present moment because it doesn't allow your body to go so much into survival mode when you're being present, because now you're showing that I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm safe right now. I am safe. I'm good. There's nothing to be constantly thinking about that is going to solve anything, really. So the more present you become, the easier it becomes to deal with some of these experiences you might have as well. Because your awareness will tell you, oh, okay, that happened. That was an experience. Now, if someone tries to say, well, you're wrong, that's not the reality that happened, just remember they're also having experiences, but they may not be fully aware of what is actually going on, right? So it's not to say someone's reality of whatever situation happened is the only truth. Everybody's truth is their own and their own experience of whatever that might look like, whether you can remember it or not. So that's the other piece of that. You might not be remembering it because it's not the reality you experienced. So that's the other part of that. So this month is definitely got a lot to it, but there's a lot of substance to this as well. It's a lot of really tangible energy that can really be felt through the body and can be really, you know, Hmm. Intentionally used is what I want to say here. So get really intentional about things. Even minute by minute, right? Maybe, like I said, maybe you're in that space right now where you're just like, there's so much going on and there's been a lot happening and it just seems to be so challenging, or it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. Uh, there is always an end. It can't last forever, but also just using the ability to have intentionality even in a minute by minute basis can be really helpful, so you don't feel like you're shutting down, or you don't feel like your body's automatically going back into survival mode for yourself because you're feeling inundated and overwhelmed. So we know all the school and everything has started up here in Canada. I know school's already started down in the States back in August, but it's it's still this space where when you come back to, especially if you do have kids going to school or routines starting to happen, summer happens in a blink of an eye, especially for Canada. And we don't get a lot of warm weather. And so it's really easy for us to kind of let loose in the summertime, feel really good about things, not really think about a whole lot. And then September seems to be the month for most where when you're slammed kind of back into those routines and those patterns. And that's also where you can have a lot of emotion show up. You can have a lot of intense pieces of that kind of show up for you, right? So it's to remember the fact that to be more intentional with day to day can one, give you a lot of clarity, yes, but two, also make you feel more grateful and peaceful for just simply exactly where you are, rather than feeling like this is not, or getting really hard on yourself or down because it's not where exactly you thought you would be or wish you would be, or you didn't want to be put in these challenges, all these things. You didn't want to have to be dealing with stuff. I mean, nobody likes being uncomfortable, but that's the thing. Uncomfortability allows you to grow, even if it is challenging, but it's challenging you because it's asking you to grow, even if it's not always 100% in your control, right? I mean, maybe there's always going to be things outside of you that, you can't control other people, you can't control situations. The only thing you can control is yourself and your reactions. So remember, September is a month of intentionality. It's to get intentional with the energy you're feeling that day, to really address yourself when with your own awareness, like really trust your own gut this month too. Like really trust your own inner knowing, because you can go and ask other people, or explain whatever might be going on, and they'll give you advice or versions back, but it can actually become confusing because now it feels less intentional, one, but it also feels less aligned with your own truth. And then that becomes even more confusing. And then we start looking around for even more, trying to figure out what else I need before I can pick my own pieces out of this. So, as much as I love my external processors, I love you all, of course, so much, but you may want to voice note for yourself before you send it to somebody, unless you've got, a couple people in your life that for sure you can bounce stuff off of, no problem. But the reason why I say that is because of that stickiness of time as well. You might be trying on something that you didn't even really recognize you were trying on. And so feeling the need to talk it out is totally fine, but you might want to talk it out for yourself to hear back first before you actually bring it to someone else. And I say that simply just because it might not be something you fully decide to land on. So what can happen is if you are talking to somebody and you're talking about these things and you're talking them through, and then all of a sudden you decide, oh, actually, I'm not going to go with that option. I don't really like how that was feeling. So you switch it up, which is totally cool, totally fine. But what then can happen is that person might become confused by what you decided to do or what you were doing, because you had been talking about, point A and now you're working on point B and they have no relation whatsoever. But yet at the same time, you're still talking about the same thing kind of. And so other people can become quite confused. So if you're having conversations with people and they're really getting confused by what you're trying to say to them, and especially if it's really genuine, because you'll always know when someone's being really genuine about wanting to listen and knowing what you're saying, they genuinely become kind of confused sometimes when we do that because they don't recognize, a lot of people don't recognize, they don't have the awareness, oh, they've just changed their mind and they were just trying on something. It just, they've decided to move on to something else. So if you're talking with someone and they end up feeling like they're confused or you feel like they're getting confused, just be really clear with them. Like be really direct and clear this month with people because the more you can do that, and I don't want to say it's going to cause explosions like what it has kind of done in the past couple months. I mean, there's definitely been some energy that flew through where it was like, yeah, don't have conversations with people. This is probably more of a month where you can have conversations with people again without feeling like you might get jumped on. But this is also got to be a month too where you have to be really clear in what you're trying to say. Because if you're vague at all, you will confuse people. And it's not to say that you're purposely doing that, but if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody or you're trying to connect with somebody in that way of language, speaking it, you need to be very clear. Very clear and like, this is what I've been thinking about, or this is how I'm feeling right now, and I'm just trying to process it out. Like using those words can be really helpful so that way people understand, like you're not putting it on them, you're just asking for an ear to be listening, right? So be really, again, there's that word, intentional with making sure you're clear in conversation as well, because that'll also really help um, for a space to be created that you might be looking for, or whatever it might be in the communication style with those people relationship wise as well will be very helpful. And it'll actually probably strengthen some of the bonds as well with certain people because clear, intentional conversation is really authentic and it's really real. And that is really being felt more and more and more and more by all these people now, especially now that we've had some integration and we've had some energy changes on Earth. So we've got DNA upgrades that are happening now. We're kind of in the midst of that still, but it's starting to really take solid place. You're starting to see some different change happening in the world, so like there's these things that are really momentum like this. It's starting to snowball now, right? And it's fantastic. It's great. But we're still going to have moments in time where it's going to feel challenging and it's going to feel really kind of like rough waters, just depending on where you're at, where, one, where you're living, of course, but also where you're at in your own journey of your own life, and how well you are able to be aware of yourself and be aware of emotion compared to uh, words. Big separation a lot of the time there as well. So September is going to be that month. Time feels sticky. It's going to be weird. You're going to have some weird sensations happen with some time and some reality, parallel reality experiences. Then you're going to also possibly have the factor of, okay, what's this unsureness, right? Remembering that unsureness is showing up. It's showing up on a collective as well because we do have a lot of momentum started now. Oh my God, this fly. And so we've got that momentum started. We've got these things happening now, starting to happen in that physical reality. We've got these things. So it feels exciting, but the unsureness is also coming from the unknown because they have not quite reached to know what that's going to look like together as a collective, yes, but also as individuals. So again, remember, if you've been working hard on things, if you've been putting in effort, you've been putting in time, you've been chasing after ideas, you've been putting them into action, whether they've come to full fruition or not, remember it's coming because they are. Whether you've completely finished stuff or not, don't worry about it. It's meant to bring you to certain specific stuff. And that's what's been going on for the solid last 6 months for sure. So the more we've kind of been, putting in this effort, putting in, taking that action, following our intuition, just listening and going for it, as crazy and wild as it might seem and completely illogical, remember that those things are going to start coming around now. We've got massive amounts of this energy that is full of abundance, that is, I shouldn't say full of your own abundance, but that's what I'm talking about. The unsureness is like, it's this newer energy that if you can align with it, like if you've been doing that work, you will see, like they just keep saying what you all would probably want to call miracles. How in God's name did that happen so fast, right? So just remember that's what's coming, and very well could start to see certain parts of that start coming in September, but this is going to be kind of a theme that'll continue out for the next, few months, especially into the last bit of 2025. Woo, excuse me. So those are kind of our themes. And to remember being really intentional and also very clear in conversations, making sure that you are being your authentic self and speaking your truth in what you need to in conversations. And I'm telling you, if you cannot do that, or you think you are and your throat tightens up on you, or you start to cough uncontrollably, or if it's like, I can't seem to get these words out, I'm asking you to take another minute, because I almost guarantee you're probably not being either one, intentional enough with being clear about what you're saying, or you're not being authentic in what you're saying. Okay. So there you go. There you have it. The month of September. Um, it will be a beautiful month, I think, for the factor of just nature. Nature's always beautiful, but I just feel like there's something about September that's very calm when it comes to nature aspects of things. So again, you'll have a balance. We always have a balance, of course, but it's just remembering to find it. All right. So I wish you nothing but the best, and I will see you all soon.